Everybody who's watching, good morning. How are you? This is Yifat Cohen, your G+GoTo Gal, and Gideon Rosenblatt. Is that right?
Yeah, I say Gideon, but Gideon is that's the original pronunciation. So.
And we're going to talk about the first. We're going to talk about 4 topics. The first one is the interest graph, and it's 35 slides that you've created that turned into a viral post on Google+, and the intent behind it was to actually explain what Google+ was, right, or is. And,
yeah.
So why don't you start with that, and then we'll see if we get any questions from anybody else.
Sure. So this started out. I was really just messing around. I had been asked to give a talk here in Seattle, so I'm in Seattle, and the organization that I used to run did a lot of technology support for nonprofit organizations, and so. They asked me to come. They knew that I'd been investing a lot of time in Google+, and so they said, hey, will you come and talk about it? And so as I started putting together some slides, I realized I was getting pulled down this direction. It was a pretty deep direction that was not going to be of interest to this kind of general audience of nonprofits, but I was just feeling compelled to talk about what I was seeing on Google+. And the thing that I kept coming back to was that I found myself getting annoyed or kind of irritated by all the people who kept comparing it to Google+ to Facebook, and then making these assumptions around why it was set up in the first place and things like that, and then comparing Google+ to Facebook in ways that Google+ really couldn't compete with Facebook, and then I kept thinking, God, it's this is just so wrong. There's just something, this set of assumptions are wrong. And then when I really started thinking about competitors to Google+ out there, the thing that kept coming back to me was Twitter. That actually Twitter is much closer in terms of the competitive landscape to Google+ than Facebook ever is. Now, you can look at the two visually and you'd say, well, Google+ looks a lot more similar to Facebook than Twitter does, or than Google+ does to Twitter, but functionally it is much. Really, Google+ and Twitter are very similar. And so the idea, as I started digging into it, was that really, if you think about why Google+ built this platform, built this social network called Google+ in the first place, I think it is to the first function is to protect its core business, which is search. And what they saw, what Google, they are not dumb people. This is a smart group of people. They were looking out there and seeing what Facebook was doing using social signals to get a better sense of what was relevant to people. And they knew that Google knew that they had to have some kind of similar path to getting that. So there were some partnerships with Twitter earlier on that they played with. But fundamentally, this is just such a core thing that I think that that's hard to kind of outsource. So what really started to emerge here was a platform for helping people to basically do content curation. And that, I think, is the heart of Google+, really, is what I tend to call it information networking. So connecting this piece of information over here with this person, and then using this person to connect this information with their networks of people and stuff. But the way most people think of it is content curation. And so if you think about Google in the bigger picture, what it's really doing is it has there's basically these kind of 3 constituents that it cares about. One are content creators, then the other are content consumers, and sitting in between now is the content curator. And so it has all of these different properties, all these different services that are aimed at these 2 things. So on the content creator side, the search engine is actually a great way, from one perspective, it's a great way of driving traffic. So it's a huge service for content creators to have the search engine. Anybody who spends a lot of time trying to publish their own blog or any other kind of website will know that getting the search engine to draw traffic to you is key, obviously. So that's the set of services that Google is providing for the content creators. On the content consumer side, you've got YouTube, you've got Reader, you've got all these different services that are out there. And so Google Plus is really the thing that's in between, that's aimed at helping people to take content that's out there and then send it to the right people.
What was the first thing that jumped, that made you realize that the media is basically wrong, right? The media is telling the entire world, they're comparing Google Plus to all the other social networks. They're saying, oh, now it's another social network like Facebook, like LinkedIn, like Twitter. And for a few people here, even the biggest internet gurus still don't seem to get it, right? But for a few people here, we get that Google Plus is really not a social media website. It's a whole platform that incorporates everything in it. And so what was the first thing that kind of jumped for you and said, oh, this is not Facebook. This is something else. Right. What was that?
Well, I think it was just a subtle feeling, right? So many of these things on these social networks is kind of the vibe that you get when you're there. And for me, as I started coming here, I was in here very early on, like back in June of last year, but I didn't invest that much time back then. I played around a little bit. Then in September, I kind of kept, I came back a little bit, and what I kept looking for was my friends. I was like, where are my friends? My friends are not here. And then it kind of dawned on me as I started looking at a few of the more successful people who had invested here early on, and what they were doing is they were finding new friendships. They weren't really using Google Plus to stay connected with their existing friendships. And so it was just a kind of a subtle, like just observing what successful people were doing. And it was through that I came on this idea that this is actually really a platform for finding other people who share your interests. And so that was this notion of the shared interest graph.
That's interesting because Kawasaki actually said it, right? Like after you did, but he coined it as Google Plus is where you find your passion, right? People connect on an interest, like you said.
Yeah.
Rather than just friendships.
Yeah. And actually, I like his phrase better, even. I mean, I like the idea of connecting around passion. I mean, it's just, I think that's the other thing. We can come back to this later, but in my old job, I spent a lot of time thinking about engagement, and we used to use this thing called a pyramid of engagement. So there's like these different levels that you go up, and down at the base, there's a lot of people, but as you get to the top, it skinnies down. This platform's actually built, I think, very nicely to scale your level of engagement with people. For you can have a very broad base of people who you engage just lightly with, and then you can do very in-depth engagement like we're doing right now. I mean, I think the Hangout is actually that is deep engagement when you're sitting face to face with people. But I like the idea of having it be around passion. I think it's great.
So you were talking about how Google is actually using this to take the data that we freely give, right? And which is genius, right? Instead of like, okay, how are we going to get all this data? Well, let's just help people, give it to us for free. Yeah. And they take all the data that we give them, and then they channel it through our connections. So can you talk a little bit about that? And I'm going to look for, if you have your slides, we can also show them.
Oh, sure. I don't. You know what? It's because I'm not a big. Here, let me bring them up here. Let's see. So.
I should have told you before. I'm sorry. I should have prepared you. Like on the spot, I'm going to be like, where are your slides?
Okay. So how do I actually share them in the Hangout? I'm not a big.
Share screen. You open it up on your screen, and then share screen, and then choose that application.
Okay. Okay. Screen share. Okay.
Okay.
Are you seeing it there?
Yes.
Okay. So I think rather than it probably doesn't make sense to go through all of these. That would take a while.
Right.
Maybe.
Go ahead. Yeah, the one that you have where all the data is channeling from the curator to...
Sure. So it's a little bit further on. This is going through the idea of the interest graph. So this is this idea of the content creator over here on the left, going through the content curator to the content consumer. And this is this whole thing that you were just talking about, Yifat, which is how do we, what is the data that Google is now collecting that indicates that we have, that we're interested in Dalmatians in this case. So this is the stuff that they've been collecting for years, which is the search, all the search data, but now, plussing information and sharing information and commenting. So this is, I'm going to skip ahead here. This gets us to how people are basically sharing influence or exerting influence over the web. And so, it's talking about how we've got writers and information curators who influence the readers. And this is, I'll come back to this later if we have time, but the idea of an influence graph, not just an interest graph, but being able to track who are the people on the web that really do have a lot of influence. And I think that, in a way, if you really think about what Google Plus is doing, is it really is trying to attract those influencers. I mean, that's, in a way, if you were to kind of, the essence of their competitive strategy, I believe, is to build a really beautiful place for people to come and, people who have a lot of influence, either because they are authors, content creators, or content curators. And I think this is just my take on this, but I think that niche used to be Twitter. Twitter kind of, and people are still on Twitter. Don't get me wrong, but I think that if you know about search engine optimization and you are studying the web and you're paying attention to this stuff, you're going to be making some investments over here in Google+, and I think you're going to be shifting more and more of your energy over here over time. So I don't know if it's worth spending a bunch more time on these slides, just because I'm finding that I'm reading these slides, and I don't know if that's going to be. Do you think? So
let's do this. Let's move to the next question, and then we're going to take about 30 minutes and bring it up again if people have any questions.
Sure.
Questions are starting to pop in, so that's good.
Yeah, sure. And people, maybe what people can do is look at those slides separately, and then if they have some questions while we're talking, and then that might bring up some questions.
Okay, and these slides can be found on Gideon's stream. If you just look for the interest graph, the shared interest graph, you can find them.
Yeah.
The next question, the next topic we were talking about is actually the competition between Google, Facebook, and Twitter.
Yeah.
And in my mind, there's not really a competition between Google and Facebook. They're two different animals. I think Facebook is a networking website, and Google is everything else. It's a platform. It's YouTube, it's Maps, it's search, it's everything. So you would not go to Facebook to look for, for a plumber, but you will go to Google, and you will not go to Facebook, and you will not bring up Facebook when you're traveling around looking on your mobile. When you're looking for local places, for example, to dine in, you're looking at Google. So in my mind, there's not really a comparison between the two of them. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that...
Gideon, click on the share screen so we can see you.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
There you go.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think there's kind of these two graphs that are out there. One is the social network graph that Facebook really does have a pretty nice lock on right now. And then there's the interest graph, which is still kind of up in the air. But if you really think about who understands our connections to various ideas that are out there on the web, really Google has a huge head start over every. I mean, head start doesn't even describe it. I mean, they have a huge advantage just because of all of the years that they've spent looking at what we search for. So I believe that when you look at business models, there is money to be made in managing that social network for sure and having control over that. Don't get me wrong. I think that there's a lot of money to be made in that. But where the real money is to be made is in managing our relationship to the things that are out there, right? Because those are the things we want to buy. Those are the places we want to visit. Those are the, that's where we spend money. We do spend money related to our relationships with other people, for sure. But where we really spend money is in buying stuff and buying experiences for those relationships with other people. So, there is going to be, I believe, immense pressure for Facebook to move into the interest graph, and they clearly they're doing that. I think that their way of doing it is it's going to be a much harder road. Like if you look at the way that they're doing it, or at least the last time I looked into this, which was about 6 months ago, they've kind of categorized things, movies and things like that. It's a very topical or kind of categorized approach to figuring out all of my relationships with all the movies that I like. But Google's approach is, using more of a kind of a search type approach, which is a little bit more, it's less structured in a way, and therefore able to go out and reach lots of different topics. Versus if you look at the set of things that Facebook is trying to keep track of in terms of the things that you're interested in, it's a very small set of categories right now. But they're going to have increased pressure over time to move into this interest graph and try to capture our relationships that we have with all of these different things and ideas out there.
That will be a big mind change now for people on Facebook.
Yeah, it will. And the other thing that's complicating this is their relationship with Microsoft, right? So they have this relationship with Bing, and I don't know if anybody here has seen this weird social network that Microsoft released about 3 or 4 months ago. Has anybody seen that?
I haven't.
I'll have to see if I can pull that out and send that out around later. I don't even remember the name of it. It was such a strange thing. It's almost like they were tying their hands behind their back and just making it be all about search. And then if you wanted to share anything, you would share it on Facebook. So it's kind of like a way for Bing to do a little bit of a social network around search that didn't compete with Facebook. So I kind of see those two having this alliance with each other, Facebook and Microsoft right now having an alliance with each other where they don't want to step on each other's turf, but at the same time, I think Facebook is going to be pressed. If they don't step into search, it's going to be very difficult for them to make money over the long haul, I believe.
Do you think they even have a chance in search?
I don't think so, but that didn't. It didn't stop Microsoft from trying to jump into it. So, I don't know. I think it will be a huge stretch for them.
Do you think Google is going to be the end of Twitter, or Twitter is going to be swallowed somehow into Google+?
I don't know. I hope not, because I like Twitter, actually. I mean, I think Twitter's much harder to use, but I think that, there's a kind of a soft spot in my heart for Twitter just because of some of the things that they have helped to unleash in the world, which is cool. I mean, that's really, and the thing about Twitter is that, and I don't know, I'd be interested in hearing what other people say about this, but it does feel like the velocity of stuff that moves through Twitter goes a little bit faster than on Google+. So it seems to be, Twitter doesn't describe themselves as a social network. They describe themselves as a real-time information network. And that's a really important distinction, right? So they're really aimed at the news, and being a way to disseminate news very quickly. So I think that there still could be a good niche there for Twitter over time, but in terms of this idea of being the platform for information curators, I think that they're going to lose that to Google.
I agree with you. Sometimes you need more than 140 characters, even if it's a news story.
Yeah, somebody's got to do an economic study of how much collective human time has been wasted trying to scope what they want to say down to 140 characters. It'd be interesting.
You just say hi and you paste the link to the entire phone, right? There are a lot of questions coming in, so let's move to the next topic, and then we'll open it up for discussion and questions.
Sure.
The next topic was actually, hold on. It was ensuring that Google Plus evolves in a healthy way to promote opportunity and give new users a shot. What do you have in mind when you say that?
Yeah, so I think about this a lot. I'm kind of one of those guys that thinks a lot about social equity and making it, at least in the United States, which is where I'm from, making sure that this country always leaves room for people to work their way up. It's the idea of the American dream, and I think that in a world where so much influence is now coming as a result of these social networks, that we need to be thinking about that same kind of stuff with these social networks. I mean, people are making hiring decisions, especially in Silicon Valley, based on people's clout scores. It's ridiculous, right? I mean, this is happening. This is happening right now, especially for younger people and people that are involved in marketing and stuff like that. If you've got a low clout score, it's a disadvantage. So Google Plus is one of those places where if you are successful, it's going to raise your clout score. And so I think one of the things we have to be careful of is this tendency on networks for the rich to get richer. That's kind of that's a built-in structure of any network, is that people who have a lot of links tend to get more links. It's just the way that it works. And so there are ways to kind of slow that down. There are policies and things like that that can be put in place to make sure that merit also plays a role. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about, is how do we ensure that this place remains a meritocracy, where somebody who's just starting today, let's say that there's some really interesting scientist or somebody who's working on social change, or a good business leader who comes in here and they start off with 30 people. How do we make sure that they have an opportunity to get their content out there in ways that we can all benefit from? This isn't just about making opportunity for them. This helps us, because when people like that get distribution, we get more interesting content.
Right. Do you have any ideas, or do you want us to open it up?
Yeah, I have a few, but I'd really be interested in other people's. I mean, I think one thing, people talk about the suggested user list a lot. There's a lot of frustration around that, and I agree. I mean, I understand what it's for. I mean, it's people like to follow famous people, so Google's going to have to keep that. But I think that this is scary. But what I'm about to suggest is kind of a scary idea, but. Google has a really good understanding now of the kinds of things that we're interested in. And if they were careful about it, there would be huge opportunity to, when you sign up to Google Plus, say, based on our understanding of you, here are the 15 to 20 topics that we think you're interested in. And do you agree? Yes, so you can go down and click, and you can turn off the things that you don't want people to know that you're interested in, and make sure that the things that you do want people to know you're interested in are on, and then have Google then go out and come back with some suggested users based on those things, right? That and by niching it, by having it be around very niche issues, whether it's dog, a love of dogs or cats, or even more niche things. You finally, you get to when you niche things out like that, you can reach people who have really good content, but maybe don't have a huge following. So I think that's one thing. And I think the other thing is, so those are kind of things that Google has to do, but I think that there are things that each of us can do. It's more of like, I would describe it as processes that each of us have for ensuring that other people, the kind of up-and-comers have a chance. And, one of the things that's been great about this place is I look at a lot of people, and Yifat, you do this too. I mean, there are people who just go out of their way to make it easy for people who are just starting out to get a start here. And I think that if we can create a culture where that is valued and recognized, I think that goes a long way too.
I think you're right, and I think from my experience, from my stream, I feel that people are extremely generous and they really want to help. If you ask someone to share something, they do. I think the hardest thing to get over is really people coming in from Facebook or LinkedIn. And over there, it's kind of like a me type of a mentality where you're just talking about yourself and waiting for people to comment on it. Yeah. Where here, it's more of an engagement. You actually go out, you find the people that you care about, like the post that interests you, based on your passion, and you comment on that, and because of the engagement, you start making new friends. So it's kind of like, in my mind, you go to a party, and you can either sit in the corner and not talk to anyone and say, oh, this party is lame. Or you can go and join like a small, like 2 people, and start talking to 2 people, and then before you know it, you know a few other people, and then this party is fun. So there's one thing that we can do to help and engage, but people who come here need to engage with us first, right? And I think that's the challenge. The challenge is really telling them, hey, this is a new space, and your behavior needs to be a little bit different than it has been in Facebook and LinkedIn. But if you just go a little bit out of your comfort zone, you can have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I think some of it is a kind of a training issue, you know, helping people to understand the differences, because there's a subtle cultural difference here that takes a while to understand. I think, you know, one other thing, too, as I'm thinking about it, is, you know, yesterday I just got back from a trip, and so while I was away, it was hard for me to keep track of the people who had circled me. Usually what I do, I'm pretty good at staying up on, you know, when people circle me, I'll go through basically once a day and just go look at all of those new people, and I look at almost everybody. I don't jump to everybody's page, but I go through that list pretty carefully. And I got kind of behind while I was away, and it was really tempting to just kind of like skim through that and just look for the people who had like, you know, a certain number of shared people. You know what I'm talking about, where, you know, you can look at the list of people who've circled you, and you can see how many people you have in common. And, you know, I don't know if other people do this, but, you know, one shortcut is to just concentrate on the people with a lot of shared you know, people in common, and just, you know, add those people. But I think one of the things, it takes a lot of time to do this, but, you know, I try to go through, if I see somebody has at least a few followers there and they look interesting, I'm going to click through and give them a shot and see if I should add them. And that takes a lot of time and energy. So that's not something that everybody can do, but I think that kind of thing, it's little things like that that help give a shot for the people that are just getting started. Yeah,
I think it's definitely it's a mind shift. I've added a few people who said, hey, who are you? Do I know you? And I'm like, okay, dude, it's not Facebook. You know, we can get to know each other now. We don't have to know each other from before.
Right. For sure.
It is a difference. Yeah. The last thing is, let's talk about how Google Plus fits with the writing content production strategy, and then we're going to open it up to discussion.
Sure. Yeah, I think this one can be pretty quick. But so, you know, I have a website called Alchemy of Change, alchemyofchange.net, and you know, it's not a commercial website at all. It's really just where I write about the intersection of technology and society, really, and organizations. And so I've noticed since I've been active here on Google Plus that my traffic has gone way up. And now it could be a complete coincidence, but I don't think so. I mean, I started getting very active here on Google Plus at the end of December, and so my January stats for my website are way higher than December or any months before, and same thing with February, March, and April's looking pretty good too. So, you know, I think that from a search engine perspective, your visibility goes way up by being here and being active here. I don't know if that's very controversial. I think what's interesting, though, so, you know, so that's a reason. If you're an author, that's a clear reason to be active here. But I'm actually using Google Plus in a way that I did not expect before. I use it to actually kind of rough out ideas. I'll do a post, and I try to not spend a ton of time on that post. Maybe, you know, 20, 30 minutes if it's a more thoughtful post. and which now this, if I'm doing an article for my website, I'll spend hours on it. But intentionally, what I'll do here on Google Plus is I'll just limit it to like 20, 30 minutes, and I'll post it up there. And then I'll get feedback from people here on Google Plus, and I'll incorporate that feedback. And I'm actually working on an article right now about social reading, where I'm taking a lot of the ideas that are coming from other people, and now I'm starting to bake them into the article itself with attribution, recognizing when people have good additions to the core idea. I'm going to try to bake that into the article, some links back to their profiles here on Google Plus so that people get recognized. But it's interesting to think about this place as kind of like an early, kind of the starting ground or catalyst or the yeast for ideas for a more polished article that shows up someplace else. And so that's what I'm starting to do. I'm starting to play with that right now, and I think it's really cool because the people here on Google Plus, I have been blown away by how much I learn from people here on Google Plus. I mean, the level of engagement and the intelligence of the questions that are coming from people, but also just I put questions out routinely, and I get really good insights from people here.
I think it's kind of like you get what you give, because when you're very generous with your comment and following people and recognizing them and engaging with them, then they're very, it's very easy to reciprocate. And when you're just more about kind of like still with the Facebook mentality, I don't have anything against Facebook, but I just think it's different mentalities. So I think that's really the biggest difference, and I think that's why when you go to big stars, and that's my problem with the suggested list. Britney Spears doesn't engage with everyone who comments there, and so if you can have 1 million followers, but there's nothing really happening except her posting, stuff. And I think down the line, maybe a year from now, when people start understanding what Google Plus is about and the level of engagement and the connections and relationships that you get from it, in terms of research and polling people and finding out, answers to stuff. Even before you write a book, you can have research around, like, what's happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just on Friday, I did this strange experiment with the wisdom of crowds, and I mean, I would have never thought to do that someplace else. But I cannot believe the level of engagement I got from people on that. And some of it, I'm sure people just thought it was fun, and they wanted to guess the right answer. But I had so many people who were genuinely interested in what the results were going to be, and I still have. I mean, there's all these people who are like, "What's happening? What's the answer to this thing?"
So what's the answer? I'm curious.
Well, I'll tell you this much: I'm actually still doing the analysis of it. But what I realized after I did the initial analysis was that the answer I've gotten is high. It's not. I mean, it's consistent because okay. So here's the brief version of it. I basically did one post, put it out there, and within like an hour or two, it exceeded the 500 comment limit. And so then I did another one and another one and another one. I ended up doing 4 of them like that. And so I collected 500 guesses from each one of those. The distribution on those separate posts of each of those 500, the distribution, the median answer is almost identical on each of those 4 different posts.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean it's bizarre. So I think that there's something to this, but the problem was that the answer was high. It was above what the actual number of Cheerios. They weren't Cheerios. They were generic brand Cheerios, as was pointed out by many people. But it was high. So then I thought, oh gosh, I'd gotten a bunch of comments in the feedback that said, oh, is this 2 bases? And so I think so I was wondering whether people actually thought that there was 2 bases and that might account for it. So I sent it out again on Monday. Using and Chris Robbins actually had suggested using a Google Docs to collect the data, and so I did that this time. So we'll see what this new answer is.
How many Cheerios were there?
I can't say. Not until Wednesday.
You can't say until
Yeah. So it's going to end tomorrow at noon. And if anybody's out there, please go and vote again. Guess again, because I need some more data. I only have about 250 guesses of this new way with the cleaned up images. So So if you can, please guess once more. You don't.
Are you still counting the original answers though?
Yeah, the original answers I can if I can understand what the possible bias was that I introduced by the. Basically, what happened is I had one image the first time I did it that I think was a little bit kind of distorted the view of it, made it seem like there was two vases. So I corrected that in this time. And I think if I can get a big enough sample this time around, I can then use that baseline to compare it to the original data and salvage the original data too.
So that was a really interesting experiment. Like,
yeah.
I wonder how close I am.
We'll see.
Yeah. So we're going to open it up. I'm going to ask a few questions like that were posted here, and then we'll open it up, and we'll stay as long as Gideon stays with us, and as long as people have questions, if that's okay. The first question is from Brian Titus. It's on the stream, and he's asking, he says, your presentation was obviously incredibly well received here on Google+. What was the response within your company and from your clients? Are you seeing much success with getting people and organizations to embrace Google+?
Well, in one way, that's a really easy question to answer because I don't have clients right now. I'm actually just full-time writing, so I can imagine what they might say. But I have had a number of I do a bunch of pro bono consulting right now on the side, and so I can give you some of the feedback I've gotten from those folks. The first set of feedback was from this presentation I did here in Seattle to a bunch of nonprofit organizations, and I think that the response that I got there was that most of them thought, wow, I really should be, there was kind of this pressure that I think a lot of them felt like, oh gosh, I probably should be paying more attention to that. Like they got the basic idea that if you want to build influence and you want to build traffic to your website, you really should be paying attention to Google+. That made sense to them. I think the biggest thing for that particular set of clients was just limited resources. And I think with nonprofits, that's a huge limiting factor. But I think it's true for lots of different organizations, right? I mean, everybody has constraints on resources, and so I think that's the big question. And I think the question people have been asking me is, should I invest in Facebook or should I invest in Google+? And I think that the question is really more, if you have a big presence on Facebook, trying to get you to stop that seems, I don't know if that's such a great idea, but Twitter, if I were an organization and I were trying to decide between investing heavily in Twitter right now or investing heavily in Google+, it's not that much of a question to me. I mean, I would focus on Google+. And so I think that's been the feedback I've gotten from clients is more, they're not really clients, these are just people that I do pro bono consulting for, but it's one of pressure and kind of like, oh my God, how can I only have so much resource in my organization that I can devote to this. So I don't know, Brian, I don't know if that answers your question. I don't think I did, really.
I think you're good. No, Brian is actually on the stream. He's watching.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Okay. But following this is actually very interesting. Blair, who is here, pasted this earlier in the conversation, and he said, you might even see this, Gideon. It's on the chat. He said, what about this thought? This is a quote from the article below. 1 second. It's going to keep moving. Today, Google+ does not feel any significant need that is unmet by Facebook. They don't care about Hangouts or possible implications for SEO. Google+ is invisible. Every time someone taps something, the entire chat goes down. Google+ is invisible to this generation. Okay, guys, stop typing because I can't read. Stop typing in the chat for a second. Okay, Google+ is invisible to this generation, kind of like Tom Hanks. Are you not going to stop typing? What's the picture going to be?
Yeah, I can't read
it was a mistake.
Well, maybe Blair, can you? Oh, I see. I'm seeing it now.
You see it? Okay, cool. Unless Google's goal is to always be the niche for geeks, they simply must break out of that Silicon Valley love fest bubble and get out on the street with the kids. Google Plus has to figure out how to appeal to the 1934 demographic deeply, rapidly, and now if it has any hope of really gaining mainstream. So I disagree with that. What's your thoughts?
Here's my take on this, and actually there are a bunch of people I can see down already on the ribbon of people that are down below. That I mean, I'd love to hear their take on this too. So
we'll open it up after you speak.
Yeah. I mean, I think here's the way that I see this: is that there are, it's no mistake that you have all these SEO experts that are super active here on Google Plus and not on Facebook. People who understand how the internet works and how traffic moves on the internet, they are investing here. So people who understand the power of these kinds of social networks to move traffic and move influence on the web, they're investing here. And so who are those people? Well, a lot of them tend to be geeks, right? I mean, they kind of start off as geeks and writers, and those are the people. And you've got photographers too, but that's a different argument. So I think that the people who are here now early on are the people who understand what this platform does, what it's really about longer term. I think that's harder for younger people to care as much about, right? I mean, if you're just out of college, you're not really, unless you're kind of grooming yourself for a career in marketing or something like that. I mean, you're not thinking about building your influence as much as just hanging out with your friends on Facebook, so you're thinking a little bit less about your career at that age. That's my take on it, and I don't have any solutions right now for how you would get over that. But I think that right now the people who are here for a reason, and that is, they see this as a way to spread their ideas and to engage with other people around ideas. And maybe it's that latter category that we could bring in younger people. I don't know. I'd really like to hear other people's thoughts on that one.
So let's open it up. Everybody, you can unmute your mics and feel free to.
Okay. That's the question, or on?
Let's talk about Google Plus. What do you think about whether Google Plus is a waste of time, just another social media network?
Yeah, I have some very strong thoughts on that. There were so many things that you talked about that really struck a nerve with me. And I've written before many times about this thing, and I think many of us have and observed difference between the social graph, which you have on Facebook, and the interest graph, which you have here on Google+, and all of the consequences that flow from that, because so much of what you've said, flows from that. And, we've all come up with different terms to describe those differences. Like some people have called it, the discovery engine, or, the place to find your passion. And because of that, that makes a big difference. And I will tell you, another thing that struck a nerve with me a lot is this whole idea of a meritocracy. This, to me, is incredibly important. I'm in France, so we have a very strong belief and value system here based on meritocracy, that goes right back to the French Revolution, where we don't like this idea of, people gaining progress and access due to their stature or due to where they are in society, either wealth or built-in networks, but by their actual work. And I think, we probably have as strong, if not a stronger, belief in that than the Americans do. So I came into Google+. I'm pretty much similar to your situation. I started early on, but I didn't really use the service at all. I just joined in the beginning, didn't pay too much attention. And it was only after this last Christmas, New Year's, that I decided, I'm going to try this network out because I have so many different interests, and this was the place that I found interest. On Facebook, I built up a great, a pretty good network, I would say, but it's all based on people I knew and people that they knew, because that's how Facebook works, right? And I built a small following, a few friends into a few thousand, and it was nice. But again, all people that I know directly or indirectly. So when I came to Google+, I'm this case study that you talked about earlier. I came here with 0 persons, not one single person I knew. Did I follow? I didn't know anybody on here, and no one that I knew was following me. So everyone that ended up following me or I followed was solely based on either a comment or a post that they made, something that they did that interested me. And it was very interesting to me to find out here was a person, especially in my case, I did this intentionally. I don't have any references to anything regarding a social status or work experience or anything because I want people to follow me because they're interested in what I talked about or commented about or what I'm reading about. So I'm trying to get as pure to meritocracy as possible. And it amazed me that here I was, this new person to the network with no followers in the beginning, like less than 100 followers. And then within, maybe a week's time, I had Robert Scoble following me, Marshall Kirkpatrick, Chris White, all the people that I was very interested in, that they found, some reason to circle me. And so I was really impressed with that. And the thing that's interesting to me is, like I said, I started probably around New Year's, but just after Christmas. And, I've gained more than 15,000 followers since then. And it's apparently strictly based on, comments and commentary. So I think there is a real possibility that this is a meritocracy, or at least the beginning of it, and that's not the case at all with Facebook.
I think you're right. I'm going to give a little tip. I don't know if everybody knows it, but when maybe one of the issues, like the psychological problems, is when you look at someone and they only have like 7 followers, and they're following 500, and you already kind of get the feeling that, okay, this kid nobody wants to be friends with because look at how many people he's following, nobody's following back. There's a way for you to move that so that it is not visible. And so when you follow someone and they come to your profile, they can, you can remove everybody that you're following, you can lower that number down, and you can just play with it psychologically for the time being when you get started, so that the impression is that, you're not being judged based on how many people are following you, but rather your post and your engagement. So you can remove it completely. You can remove the number of people that you can hide, the number of people that is following you, and only leave the number of people you're following. And so psychologically, it also already shows that so many people you're engaging with so many people, and that can give you a good head start. Another way to do this is going and engaging with the people you want to engage with. And one way of doing this is actually creating circles, and creating circles of affecting people who are highly followed, and then sharing that circle. And so all these people are going to be very happy that you put them in a circle, and they're going to share that circle with their friends. You're in that circle, and then you're going to get all these followers. So there are all kinds of like little tricks that you can do to gain followers. In my mind, it's not the quantity, it's the quality. You can have 150 very engaging people in your circle that you engage with, and you can have the best time. And you can have 1 million followers, and you can have bad negative comments in your stream. So it's not really how many people are following you, even though that's nice. But I think more people are caring about the engagements, and they're not finding that with 30 people or 50 people. So in my mind, the goal should be start finding your passions and find the people that are talking about things that you care about. Follow them, engage with them, and then your relationship and your interactions here will be more enjoyable. And then you'll spend more time here. You'll get to know more people. You'll jump on Hangouts, and you'll bring other people to Google+. So it's my little opinion about Google+.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, one other little thing too I would say is, think posses. Like, if you can, I think one thing that's really important is find your core group of posse, like a posse of people who really do have a shared set of interests with you, and those are your buddies here. And if you have that, I mean, it not only makes it more fun. You learn a lot, but that just from just purely a network perspective, having that little cluster of people, and you are commenting on their stuff, and they're commenting on yours, that really helps. It helps to raise your visibility, and if you've got that little network of people that are doing that, and I would say if I were starting over again, one thing, I mean, this is just purely a tactical thing, but if I were starting over again, what I would do is I would look for a set of people who have about the same size following as I do, and I would concentrate on building a little posse with those people. And I would focus like crazy on trying to find people with about that same size following and similar interests, and trying to build that connection there. And before going and following all the big players, because I mean, I don't know. This is maybe stating the obvious, and it may be not cool to say this, but I think one of the things that happens is I think it's very hard for the people who have lots of followers to notice somebody who has 200-300 people following them, just because they have these people that have big followings. They've got so many people following them that it's hard to tune in to somebody who has 200 people, and so I think there's got to be some tricks early on to kind of help people who are just getting started to kind of build that base. And if I were doing it all over again, that's what I would do. I would concentrate early on in trying to kind of work with the people that are in my kind of the similar size of followings as me.
Well, that's why I gave my example, because I thought it was interesting that I started out, I only had maybe I started out actually with 0. And at the time that I had maybe 100 followers or 200 followers, I already had people following me who had huge followings, like Robert Scoble and all these other people that I mentioned. So I think it's possible. I agree it's difficult, but that's the beauty of I think Google Plus is the fact that it is possible, that there are probably other people like me that somehow or other, even without the followings and without the normal entrapments that there are out there, are able to attract the attention of these people that do have huge followings and who do create a lot of interesting comments and commentary. And it is possible to get their attention. It is possible to get there. So I think that's a huge benefit of this network.
I think I had a different experience when I first got on last summer. What kept me on was connecting with a lot of the heavy posters and finding interest in them, because they were the only ones that were posting, the Guy Kawasaki's and Robert Scobles. And so being connected to them made me want to keep coming back and see what they had to say. Then I branched from there to slowly get more and more contacts. What do y'all think?
I think you're right.
That was my
Kawasaki definitely responds to comments left on their stream. So if you want to get, I think that we should go back and figure out, okay, what's your goal? Do you just want to be noticed by these big guys? What for? What is your goal? What are you doing here? Are you just posting for the sake of sharing information? Are you trying to send traffic to your website? Are you trying to create shares? Are you trying to have hangouts with? Do you try to interview people? What are you doing here? And that will change your strategy. So if you really just want to engage with people based on passion, then you don't need a lot of followers. You need just the people that you care about. If you want, if you're writing a book and you want Kawasaki to endorse it, then you need to build a relationship with Kawasaki. But you see, it's like, what is your goal? Yeah. And that's different. And I think this platform allows you to execute whatever goal you have, because you can get in front of Kawasaki and you can send him your book and he can read it and endorse it, whereas that won't happen in Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, right? So it is possible here to do these things.
That's true.
And I think that is the beauty of Google Plus, because all you have to do is follow Kawasaki, and the minute he jumps on a hangout, you jump on a hangout with him. And now you're face-to-face video with Guy Kawasaki, and he knows exactly who you are, and you can talk to him and continue the conversation afterwards. So it's not. I think we make it more complicated than it is. If we just think like a party and like, okay, here's the guy at the corner that I want to go talk to, and how am I going to, and when I go talk to him, I have one sentence, right, to make him kind of like figure out if there's anything in common. That's what I need to go for. And then everything else is simple. We're people, right? We just like to interact. We like to talk to each other, use some humor, introduce yourself. Same as in the regular life. I just think Google were very genius in what they did. They took your offline environment, right? Offline life, and brought them online rather than taking your, I'm sorry, in reverse, right?
Yeah.
They took
Right.
your online life and brought them offline, as opposed to Facebook taking your regular relationship and putting them on the internet.
Yeah. Well, the thing I really like about what you just said is the whole idea of having a goal up front and being really clear about what you're trying to do. Because I didn't do that when I started here. I had, kind of a vague idea of what I was trying to do back in June, and then didn't really invest in it. And then in December, I started getting a clearer sense of what I was trying to do. And I think that's just very good advice. Is when you're starting off here, what is it that you are trying to do? Are you trying to maximize, as you said, are you trying to maximize traffic to your website? Are you trying to just, build a new set of friendships? What is it that set of goals? Because I think I've heard lots of I've heard people have very different strategies for building their base and building their connections here. And we've just heard like 2 or 3 different paths to doing that. Some starting off with just, the thing that I was talking about, just starting off with like people that are around the same size as you, others, engaging with some of the kind of the stars and trying to build their connections that way. I think that would be an interesting article or interesting post, is to kind of look at the different strategies that people are using to build their connections here and what those goals are that kind of led them in those to those strategies.
And I think it's okay not to know. I think it's okay to come here and not know what you want and just play around and meet people, and through your interaction experience, kind of decide what it is you want. I had a guy who, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, that was exactly, my strategy, if there was a strategy at all, because I didn't come here with a goal of trying to get a certain number of followers or increase my followers. I came here with only one specific goal, which was to find topics that were interesting to me and to read about them and to comment on them. And everyone that I've circled, it was never because of who they were or anything else, but solely based on the content. And I found, interestingly enough, a consequence of that was that I ended up getting a lot of people to follow, and a lot of people following me as an indirect consequence. So it's only now that I've started thinking about, what maybe I should do with that. But up until now, it's always been, hey, I'm interested in, this part of tech or in this subject, and this person is talking about it, and he writes great posts. So I'm going to circle him, and I'm going to read, and I'm going to comment on it, and then they comment on my comments or comment on my posts, and it's I think it's a beautiful, flourishing discovery network. And I know there's other people that have other goals, and that's fine, I think, But I think the best way to make this work is to just sort of be yourself and do whatever it is that you're passionate about, and you will find other people, or they will find you, and that share that passion, and you will grow your network and passion enhancement together.
I'd just like to add my agreement to that. And I do quite a bit of Google Plus coaching with sort of business owners, and the number one thing at the start is people don't know what to do. They come on Google Plus and they don't know what they want out of it. Should I make it like Facebook? Should I do it like Twitter? Should I make it a business network? Should I try and find my school classmate? Should I do with it? So the number one thing is to sit down with them and say, you want to go from A to B. You've got to find out what point B is and identify it, and then build your whole strategy around that. That's the key thing. So I completely agree, yes. All about goals, identifying the goals, and then building everything around those. Very important.
Yes, I totally agree, and and maybe that's why people are not connecting to Google Plus. Maybe that's why people are coming here and they're, what do I do? It's like it's a ghost town. Who do I talk to? I don't know anyone. And
you know what it is? It's not that people don't want to be here. It's that when people come here, they've been, for I'd say at least 10 years, conditioned to accept whatever a social media network gives them as soon as it comes into existence. Here's what our media does, here's what you do with it. And as a result, people are expecting the same kind of thing from Google. But Google's always been one of those places that build toolboxes, not necessarily toys.
Exactly.
So you got stuff from Google, but you still had to use it or figure out what you want to do with it. And I think people are uncomfortable with that. When they go to Facebook, they know exactly what they're going to get once they sit down and play with the toys. With Google, you come to G+, you look around, you go, well, I could do this, or I could do this, or I could do this. And in a culture where people are not really driven to being self-motivated, they just kind of sit there and go, well, I guess since no one's telling me what to do, I won't do anything.
You know what? I think that is really right on, because this is actually a platform. It's like a social network platform. You could do lots and lots of things with Google+. It is kind of like it's a utility, and I think that Google kind of built it in that way. I think one of their problems is that they built it to be so flexible that it kind of prevented them from taking a hard stand on, a marketing position for what the network actually is about and how it is differentiated from Facebook. And so because they kind of did that, like, this is going to be all things to all people, this is kind of a platform for social networking and for the interest graph. The problem is that then other people just filled in their interpretation of what this was for. Right?
Or worse, no interpretation, because I think some people said nothing. They said it doesn't do anything. And of course, if you have no skills, or you have no ability, or you have no drive, or you have no interest, then you're right. It does nothing. But if you do, or you have an idea of what you want, then it can do anything. So they should have been selling it as an erector set, not as just a social media platform.
Well, and
that is so well said. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with the last two commentators, because this is exactly what's happening. Ever since they opened it up to the public, you had millions of people, or tens of millions of people start joining this network. And the problem is that the hundreds of millions of people out there, they're already conditioned as to what their expectations are in terms of a social network because of Facebook. So they have this Facebook experience in their mind, and they're hearing, before coming here, oh, this is like another Facebook or another social network. So they have certain expectations in mind, and they come here. And if you judge this network by those expectations, it's very easy to see how you could say, oh, yeah, it's a failure, because you join, and your friends aren't here, and your peers aren't here, or they're not necessarily here. That was my case. I didn't see anyone I knew. But if you judge it by that, then you say, okay, well, there's not much here, and if you don't see much comments, you don't see much going on in the stream, and so you leave. And that's the hurdle they have to overcome. And I think it's very well said here, because Google has to be able to communicate that message and change those expectations before people come here, or they will be disappointed, But the ones that are here, that have learned, how to use this and to make the most of it, we can continue to increase our networks, which brings more people in, and eventually people may get the message. But one of the biggest problems was Google Plus went public too soon.
Yeah, they did. And one of the reasons I like Google Plus is because when I'm on Google Plus, I feel like I'm on the internet. It's a web and flow of, you want to search, you want to do Google Plus, you want to go read an article, go back to Google Plus. But when you're on Facebook, you're like behind the walls of Facebook, and you're confined right there. And so I think it depends on the mindset of what the people make. And I really think it's genius of Google to do that, because it's going to take them a while, but once people get out of that mindset of being confined in one platform at a time, Google Plus is going to take off.
It's all about the ecosystem, I think, as well. I mean, it's not just Google Plus. It's about Android as well. It's about Chrome. It's about Google Docs. It's about Gmail. It's about all of these things coming together. And if you're going to be successful or do well, you've got to understand everything. You can't just focus on one thing. And that's what the power of Google is with this. Google search. I've got to say search as well. I mean, how can other networks like Facebook or Twitter compete with that? They can't in the long run. So, it's a huge thing Google's got here, and people need to understand all of it before they start trying to do anything with it, I think.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a great discussion. I'm loving it. We are 10 minutes behind. I'm sorry, we are 10 minutes over time. I don't know, Gideon, you probably have other things set up, but if anyone wants to stick around and chat a little bit, I don't know how much time you have. If not, we can close this. And I thank you. Maybe continue next week if you have time.
Have time? Yep.
Yes. Awesome.
Sure. I'd love to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this was a great discussion. Yeah, this
Great,
was a great
wonderful.
discussion. Thanks so much for having it.
Wonderful. So yes, we'll come up with new topics. Feel free to send us questions and anything that you want us to discuss. We'll bring it up next week, same time, same day. And actually, this Thursday we have an interview with Megan from Mashable. Thursday at 3 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Eastern. So join us. We're going to learn about her and her story. So I'll see you then. Thank you, Gideon, so much. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Shira. Everybody who joined in. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you.